welcome, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. This is your host, Aaron Deliosa, and this is an Immigrant's Life podcast. An Immigrant's Life podcast and all the social media where you can check us out with our extra content. You can message us if you or someone you know wants to come on the podcast and tell their story. Hit us up there, or you can also email us at animmigrantslife@yahoo.com. I had a great weekend. I hope you guys had too. I went camping after, I think, 2 to 3 years of not going. I finally succumbed and went camping. It's not really camping, it's like more glamping. There's a deep reason why I don't go, but this year I decided the kids are growing and they won't be as small as they are now, so might as well take advantage. Going up was a little bit treacherous because we got a lot of rain here in Montreal. It was like a record rain. There was a lot of flooding, but I arrived safely. Saturday, I went for a bike ride. Beautiful day. Spent with the family and just chilled the whole time. And I realized camping is not for me anymore. I used to be a big camper back when I was younger. This is in the Philippines, we used to hike for hours, find a spot near the river and just camp there for like 3 days to 1 week. And it was fun, but now it's just, I don't want to just lie down there and do nothing. I feel like that's for the young ones. Obviously, if you like camping, that's awesome. It is an amazing way to spend time with yourself and spend time with nature. But for me, it's not something I enjoy anymore. Anyways, that's my weekend. I hope you guys had a good weekend, like I said. And you know what? This intro is getting too long. How about let's get to the episode, huh? In today's episode, we explore the transformative power of play in therapy with a dedicated practitioner who combines personal experiences as a psychotherapist and an immigrant to fuel her passion for mental health. Discover these insights shape a holistic approach by our amazing guest, and I promise you this was such an enjoyable conversation and you will learn so much from it. So, without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is the founder and clinical director of Larô Therapy. But with mental health, boy, she ain't playing. Everyone, please welcome Elda Almario.
Woohoo!
How you doing, Elda?
I am well. I am so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Of course, thank you. I saw your profile a million years ago, and I'm like, I don't know if she wants to talk to me. I still have this. It's silly. This inferiority complex
Mm,
sometimes still creeps in. Sometimes I'm like, dude,
yeah,
you're not gonna die.
you're not.
You
And
know?
wasn't that exactly my message to you when you sent me a message? I also told you I've been gathering my guts to connect with you
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to pitch myself to you.
Pitch what? I'm just a dude. Come on and like we'll chismis.
I love that. Yeah, yeah.
But I do appreciate that.
Mm,
And if someone's listening and you want to come on, like I said, reach out. I'm ready. There's only one rule that I'm really staunch about.
mm-hmm.
As long as a person is cool.
Mm.
If they're not cool, bye. You know.
So I can attest to that. You're not gonna bite.
No, I don't just like I just wanna chismis, to be honest. That's it. That's all I wanna
Yeah,
do. By the way,
for
thank
sure.
you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Why don't you tell the immigrant nation where they can reach you or if you wanna promote anything?
I'd be happy to. So I'm Elda. I'm a psychotherapist and I run my own practice. It's a virtual psychotherapy practice based in Ontario. And so I see clients from all over Ontario. And if anyone's looking for mental health support, psychotherapy, I am currently accepting new clients. Would be happy to work with you if it's a fit. But you can certainly out, learn more about me through my website. All my work would be there, and that's larotherapy.ca.
I love that name, by the way. When I saw that name, like, yes. No, it's just like, of course, for the ones that doesn't know, Laro means play. And it's
Mm,
just, I was like, that's the best way to get into
mm.
someone's psyche, especially like kids, you know? Like I coach teenagers, young kids,
Mhm.
and that's my first move always. Like be silly with them, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And Aaron, I'd even say it's not limited to kids, right? As an adult, like I'd invite you and folks to reflect on your relationship with play, right? Because when we were growing up, at one point, perhaps we were told, stop playing, like be an adult now, right? And maybe we thought at one point we had to pack up our toys. We have to be responsible now, do adulting. But really, do we? I mean, who's saying that? Why is it that we would think there would be no more room for play at one point in our lives? And I think that there's room to challenge that, right?
Where do you think that came from? The idea of stop playing, be mature, and put away your toys.
Hmm. Many things for sure. But the first thing that comes to mind is maybe just work and responsibility. And is how is being a productive human being defined by society? And maybe it's you're expected to work, you're expected to have a successful job, you're expected to be earning good money, you're expected to be providing for your family, all these things. And maybe play gets in it was thought that play gets in the way from doing that, right?
Yeah, only children plays,
Yeah.
which is so
Yeah.
silly because now, obviously, with all the research and whatnot, they've shown so much that playing actually solves so many problems. There was
Yeah.
there was a study. I forgot the study. I can't. I pretend I read, but whatever, you know. And there was a study about there's a problem, the engineering problem, and there was a bunch of engineers, and then a
Mm,
bunch of 7 years old,
mm,
and then like they are only use sticks or something like spaghetti like strings and stuff like that, and they
mhm,
have to solve this problem. These kids destroy these engineers like in a matter of minutes, and they couldn't believe like how, and they're like because there's no judgment,
mm,
you
mhm,
know.
mhm.
I
Yeah.
think I think the judgment's the main thing.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And I would also add that even as children, some adults may be quick to say, you're just playing, right? Devaluing play. But actually, there's a lot of value that play brings in. Like, play is necessary for one's development, right? Play is not something children need to learn, they just know it already. It's innate, right? Play is a form of expression. Play is one of the ways that children process their experiences. It's a way to cope with trauma or difficult life experiences. Play is a way to learn, right?
100%. Larô
Yeah.
Therapy. Let's talk about this.
Mhm.
How and when did you come up with the concept?
I have been a psychotherapist for many years, over 10 years at this point. But Larô Therapy, I founded it in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. I don't know. My partner has always believed that that's where I'm headed, that I'm eventually going to have my own practice. And I never believed him, like initially, like, I'm not built for that. I guess when I think of like a business owner, the people I think as like SM, like Henry C owns SM, like um suits, that's my idea of a business owner. And so I never saw myself in that position. And yet having experience in many different settings in terms of providing mental health support, I did see myself wanting to do things my own way, not wanting to be limited by things like funding, for example, or being accountable to folks who have no idea about mental health, who have no idea about the community that I'm serving, right? The only thing I want to be accountable to is to myself and to the people that I serve. Hence, Larô Therapy. And that's when I decided to venture on my own practice because I really want to serve the community in the best way possible. I look at my own practice as my revolution. Every single decision that I make within my business is something that's very intentional and deeply thought of. And that's something I take pride in.
I love that. Were you practicing in the Philippines?
I
This blows my
was.
mind, by the way. Let me just before you answer,
I love that.
because I was actually having conversation with my mom
Mhm.
about one of I think a family member or a family friend is a psychologist of something in the Philippines. But like you're a psychologist in the Philippines. That kind of like that doesn't really work. You know what I'm saying? Like
Ah,
how much you make money? Like no one goes to therapy in the Philippines. Like zero.
yeah,
You know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how did you start, and what made you decide to go to that path?
Yeah, Aaron, I so appreciate that you know that because not a lot of people know that, the mental health landscape in the Philippines. Psychologists are such a rare breed. And the stigma surrounding mental health, like what kind of conversations people are having about it, right? More so, seek support for mental health? Like, are you kidding me? I have Pamalo here.
Exactly.
Don't be dramatic, right? I guess okay. Going back to my roots, I got interested in mental health because of my brother who's autistic. And just growing up, so I would say
A
for
superhero. I call them superheroes because they have superpowers. These
you too,
people.
you too. Yeah.
By the
So
way,
we're
what's his superpowers?
um he's great at he's memorized the entire map of Metro Manila.
This is crazy. Like these people have superpowers. I think
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. They are unique for sure. So he's 4 years younger than me. And growing up with him, like even at a very young age, I got to observe like, oh, he's different, right? Like I'd see him lining up toys. I'd see how it would throw him off when those Legos were not lined up perfectly, right? And I'd wonder, like, what's the big deal? Why are you screaming and hitting when it's just an inch away from where it's supposed to be? And so that's where that's how I got curious. And also I think so autism, but also how it impacted the family and the community because I am very, very close to my brother. Like I'm his person, I dare say, but he's not like that towards my other siblings, right? And so like I was noticing this dynamic of like we're all different, right? I was very curious about autism per se, but also how it impacted the dynamics in our relationships as children and then eventually as adults, right? So again, I got interested. That's why I decided to pursue a career in psychology. I would go with my brother. I would take him to his therapy sessions and observe. what they're doing. So very early on, I'm one of those folks who just know and didn't even need to ask what I wanted to do because I just seem to know.
Yeah, you're lucky. You're lucky. You're one of those lucky ones that just
Yeah,
knows. Like I have a
I
friend.
recognize that.
Like I have a friend that I asked him. He's a drummer. He's a professional drummer. And it's like, when did you know? I was like 4 years old. I walk in a room. My cousin has a drum set, and I was like, "This is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life."
Yeah, yeah,
Like, hey, good for you,
yeah.
man.
I recognize that, and I do see myself as very lucky to have found like my passion and what I want to do for the rest of my life, even very early on. Mm.
So you graduated college. You did your masters. You practiced in the Philippines. What kind of clientele were you attracting?
Mhm. So different settings. At one point, I worked with children who have learning disabilities, ADHD, autism. I've worked in the academe. I taught in Assumption College. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's in Makati. I've also worked in a rehabilitation facility. Right, it's a residential rehabilitation facility. So I was living in there, right? So 5 days a week, no going home. I only go home on the weekends. So, you can guess that in the rehabilitation facility, it's I would say, more severe cases that I would work with in that setting, right? Very much higher needs. As the clientele there. But my last job before I moved to Canada was in a private practice setting. Um, giving you an idea that those that can afford mental health support in the Philippines are those that, one, are aware of what mental health is. Number two, have money to pay
A
for.
100,000%.
Right. So I would say, middle upper class. But also, we are a nonprofit, so we would go in the community. So think survivors of typhoon. We would go to these places and do outreach work. Right. That was part of the job as well.
I love that you said about like typhoons,
Mm,
like which is pretty much the whole Philippines, by the way. But
yeah.
that's how do you look at that? Because there'll be a typhoon. I mean, it will destroy the community.
Hmm.
Most of the time, unfortunately, there'll be some life loss,
Hmm.
and the news will come, and those people in the back, while their bodies have in the water, they'll
Hmm.
just smile and laugh.
Yeah.
Is that resilience or is just like not caring?
I would say, for better or for worse, resilience, right? We have been so used to that happening. You gotta find something light. You gotta find the humor in it, right? And I say for better or for worse because you watch these videos of people using their jet skis, diving, like in their, like floating in the Baha, right? And you think, that's dirty. And how, that could cause like health um, complications. But then how else can you survive if this is something that's regularly happening in your life and it's horrible? I cannot imagine folks coping without making light of some of the things. Like, if you have that capacity, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, 100%. Like it's not that they don't care. It's just
Hmm.
some of them has no choice. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, I'm just gonna move to Ontario now because I don't like in Quebec anymore. It's that's not gonna happen. Like it's so rare, right?
I'm glad that you said that because I guess it's easy to pass that judgment when you see them doing that. Like, why would you do that? Like, but you don't really have a good understanding of what's happening in the ground. It's not that simple. Even you're right. Like, it's not just like moving from Quebec to Ontario. Like, there are so many other factors, and these are we as a culture, like, we are collectivists. We don't just think of ourselves. We have to think of our family, right?
Yeah, family, neighbors, you know,
Uh-huh.
and that's
Uh-huh.
for the better and for the worst. Like when there's typhoon season, you'll see the community like helping each other out, you know.
100%. A
And they'll
hundred
make like,
percent.
speaking of making a light, I just saw a video like while we're recording it. There's a typhoon in the Philippines, unfortunately,
Mm.
and there's Baha, with flooding, and then this group of 10 guys naked, you know, and just in the water, and there's this biker motorcyclist that who wants to cross the street.
Uh-huh.
And this guy just lifted the motorcycle with the guy and then bring him on the other side. They're not getting paid, and they're just doing
Uh-huh.
it for laughs. You know, like I love that.
Yeah. And what else is there to do? Help each other, make fun of each other. We're in this together anyway.
Exactly. You were settled in the Philippines. You're doing all right. You're
Mhm.
professionally
Yeah.
settled, but you
Yeah.
said, you know what, dude? Let's go to Toronto.
Mm.
What forced you to go to Toronto, or what made you go to Toronto?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I love this question because I have an interesting story, an interesting immigration story, perhaps. You're right. I was okay. I didn't feel like I have to move out of the Philippines because of poverty or whatever reason. As much as I'm hearing others' narratives being like that, I moved to Toronto just because I wanted to try what it's like living here. My partner was based in Toronto, and so we decided together, let's just try it out. If it doesn't work, then let's go back. Right? Nothing to lose. Kind of, nothing to lose, but I did have my career going on for me at the time. But sure, I have never lived outside of the country. I have no idea what that would be like. So just gave it a try.
I understand that, as usual, you are like high level professional in the Philippines.
Mm.
You come to Canada, no one cares about you.
Yep.
Like, oh, you're a vice president of the company. Who cares? Go drive a truck or whatever.
Yep.
What was your experience like?
I am very privileged and did a lot of research prior to moving. And so I am, and this is just my personality. I'm on top of the game. I always look at, okay, how do I make sure that I continue to practice psychotherapy even after I move? So heavy on research, heavy on tapping the network, right? Folks that I could be connected to that are already here, that perhaps are in the mental health field. It's not easy because there's not a lot. As I've said, like, there's not a lot of psychologists in the Philippines, more so Filipino psychologists in Canada. Um, but I did find a few. So what that looked like in terms of bridging was I did a bridging program for a year. And after a year, I was able to register with the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario, which is, has given that registration. I'm now able to practice psychotherapy here.
Oh, no way. You just like transitioned. Smart girl, man. Smart girl.
Smart, yes, but also privileged because I would not have been able to do that if I didn't have my partner here, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have anything with me. We agreed that he'd continue working while I pursue that training, and then when I'm okay, we'll take turns. He'll be the one doing the training, and I'll keep us alive.
I love it. Shout out
Yeah.
to your partner.
Thank you.
How has your immigration helped you grow as a psychotherapist?
Mm. When I was back home, my my main interest was working with kids, children and youth, right? And so maybe it was naive when I moved here. I'm thinking, okay, I'll just continue seeing children and youth. But once I've put myself out there, I realized that more Filipino immigrants were seeking my support exactly because I am a Filipino immigrant myself. Like, they don't have to do that extra labor of explaining, in our culture, this is what it's like,
You know, there's a
right?
tricycle. You know what tricycle is? No. Okay. What about jeepney? Do you know what jeepney is?
Exactly, exactly. Plus, I speak the language, right? And sometimes they don't have to translate in their minds. And you know how some Tagalog words don't have a translation in English. And so it's just so much easier. And so a lot of the inquiries that I got were from the Filipino community. And that's when I realized, oh, again, unicorn, we're a rare breed here. And so, sure, I would love to work with the Filipino community. I'd be so happy to. And again, also, like I myself have experienced immigration. So I've also felt very comfortable working with this population because this is my community, right?
Yeah, that's 100%. Speaking of that, you being
Mhm.
Filipino, you're a woman of color, as they say.
Mhm.
A lot. I've been hearing a lot now that from people of color that they should look for a person of color as psychotherapist.
Mhm.
Do you agree with that, or do you think that's just something else?
Mm. I think there's harm in overgeneralizing statements like that. I would still want to honor the nuances, right? It benefits some folks because, like this piece I was saying, right? Like, you already understand my culture, you speak my language. That is helpful, right? On the flip side, which I also do want to open up, some would want more, let's say those coming from smaller communities, some would want privacy. And perhaps when you're Filipino working with a Filipino therapist, maybe there's likely that there are connections there, right? And so some would want to avoid a therapist coming from their community because of that, right? Another thing is that just because I am a woman of color does not make me immune from internalized racism, right? We're all human beings. And so, what if I hold assumptions about the Filipino culture that's not necessarily applicable to everyone, right? So, my suggestion is check in with what feels right for you,
Yeah.
right?
If the vibe, I said it, I had a conversation with a psychotherapist too, and I'm like, yo, it's about the vibe, man.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
you said something about like internal racism and judgment and whatnot. How do you switch off your therapist brain and your human, like your, I
Mhm.
guess, normal brain? I don't know.
Yeah, I hear ya. Hmm. I think it's a skill. It's certainly more difficult when I was starting in this career because, okay, the human brain, I can't turn it off. Like I am human, right? It's the therapist brain that I'm having to turn off once my work is done. But the thing with this work is the work is your humanity is part of the job, right? Being able to connect, being able to relate, right? So if I were to turn that off, that would make me an inefficient therapist, right? And so there's value in that. In fact, I think like that makes the work much more effective. And it also comes with risks because then if you're not knowing how to take care of yourself, if you don't have good boundaries in place, then that's your quick road to burnout for sure, right?
Yeah, for sure. How do you navigate cultural differences with your clients in therapy sessions?
Hmm. The thing that's really important is being intentional and holding a lot of curiosity, right? I think the term cultural competence is just inappropriate because we can never be competent. about one culture, like especially when we don't belong in that culture, right? And so when we hold more of like a stance of curiosity and sensitivity and mindfulness, I think that's the way to go, right? Really, it's this belief of how much do I believe that my client has the wisdom and the inner knowing of what's going to be helpful for them.
Yeah,
Right?
100%. Cultural competence. What do you mean by that?
A lot of times, so, okay, sometimes people would, or let's just say institutions or systems may seek cultural competence, right? And sometimes what that means in terms of education is a 3-hour course. Right? Once you've taken the course, well, I'm culturally competent.
That's stupid.
I know, right? But in time, that's been challenged. And so far, they've been veering away from that, right?
Okay. This remind me of before we moved here in
Hmm.
Canada, we
Hmm.
had to go to this, what was it? It was like not a conference, like a training to be Canadian. I was like,
I know this.
it was
Yeah.
like I don't know if they still do it, but we had to go to this room. There's this lady, she's from Toronto. She's Filipina, but grew up in Toronto. So
Uh huh.
she's Canadian. She's not Filipina. And then she's just telling us things like, oh, this is a toonie, this is a loony, cool, which is helpful. Yes,
Uh
I get
huh. Uh
that.
huh.
And then she's like, oh, if you're in Canada and you're on vacation, you just leave your family. You don't have to stay. I'm like, wait a minute. You're not Filipina. That, yes, you could do it in
Uh
event,
huh.
but you always have to think about the family first. They don't have to
Yeah.
come all the
Yeah.
time, but don't be like,
Yeah.
just, by the way, bye,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And that's exactly why I go back to like being mindful of using like overgeneralizations, right? Because you always want to go back with immigrating. Sure, you want to be able to adapt to the new country. That's important. But then you're not wanting to lose your own identity, right? In the process of adapting to this new country and this new culture, you don't want to lose yourself. And I hate that a lot of the focus has been adapt, 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 right? And then people are not connected with their cultural identity, right? And I think that's the risk of that. I remember this training or workshop or talk that you're talking about. The helpful part there for me was this piece on weather, because I have no idea about what winter is like. Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I was like, dude, I'm from poverty. I am. There is lions over on the other side. We have to kill the lions. I will kill that lion. I don't care as long there's food. I'm good. You know.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
anyways, I always think about that lady, and I was always thinking about the training. I felt like going back there, and I'm like, yo, by the way, do not forget that you're Filipino. Yes,
Yeah.
of course, adapt, of course, assimilate, all those good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but never forget where you're from,
100%.
Because I was like that. When I came here, I was like, I wanted to be Canadian. I was speaking
Mm.
Canadian, like the
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote Canadian way until
Yeah.
until a friend of mine who's immigrant from the Caribbean is like, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you talking like that? You don't talk like that. And it just woke me up. I'm like, oh yeah, I have to like find my middle ground.
Yeah, yeah. And not to blame you for that, because that's what we think would help us survive, right? I maybe what needs to happen for me to be able to succeed in this setting is that I speak the same way that everyone does, or I forget about my roots, or like I really assimilate, right? And so we're sold on that. That's what we thought we need to do. And so I'm so glad that we're coming into that realization that no, we don't have to lose ourselves.
No, we don't. We have to remember who we were, and then welcome the ones that who we are now. You know.
Yes,
I
exactly.
want to ask you, how do you approach issues of identity and cultural adjustments with immigrant clients?
Hmm. It really depends where they're at, right? And so a lot of folks that come see me would want to get to know themselves better, like explore who they are, like engage in a journey of
Ooh,
self-discovery,
scary.
right?
I hate this part.
it's only for it's only for the brave.
Oh, 100%.
But yeah, so now what that means, it depends on, I guess, the timing where they're at in their lives. So a lot of times it could be depending on like whether they're experiencing life transition, right? Someone who's a new immigrant, right? Or someone who just got married. What does it mean now that I'm someone's partner, that I'm someone's spouse, right? Whereas before, I'm only just thinking of myself, right? Or what does it mean that my parents are aging and are getting sick? And us as Filipinos having to navigate the concept of utang na loob, right?
Yes.
What what does it mean to be a young adult looking for my place in the corporate world, right? And I'm curious about my relationship with work. Why is it that there seems to be some sort of pressure and that the only thing I need to be doing is working all the time? If I'm resting, that doesn't feel good. If I'm playing, that doesn't feel good. So it's very varied, I would say, right? And depending on what they bring in, it's really what we would work on.
Yeah,
Right?
I like what you said about when I'm not working, I'm resting, I don't feel productive.
Yeah,
And I heard that that is based sometimes with trauma because you are basing yourself
yeah,
that if I am not working, I'm not adding anything to my life and to the community. Do you think do you
yeah,
agree with that or
absolutely not. Like you're so spot on about trauma, but I'd also add capitalism, right? Like it's this it seems to be that some folks may be equating their worth or their value to the money that they bring in, right? And so if I'm not working or if I'm not earning money, that means I'm worthless, which is just absolutely false, right? How then can we redefine our worth or how we value ourselves outside of the income that we're earning, right? Outside of the work that we're doing, right? Yeah.
there's this book by Abigail Shears. It's called Bad Therapy: Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up. Apparently, she interviewed countless therapists and whatnot, experts, they say. Uh, Apparently, most of the time, talking about problems just exacerbates one's problem. What's your take on that?
Mm, it depends. Um, for a lot of folks, talking in itself is healing, right? And again, like I'm not gonna make statements that you like. This is not about generalizing a statement, right? Like, sure, for some folks, maybe it's not helpful because they're already at a state where they're wanting to engage in action, like beyond talking, right? But there are folks that have never spoken about these difficult things in their lives, right? And so there is value in being able to, let's say they've experienced something traumatic, right? And they were completely alone in that experience, right? So being able to share that with someone, have someone witness that struggle and validate the pain that they've gone through, that in itself is healing.
I love when you said talking is healing. Like
Mm.
that's what one of my therapists told me one time. Because sometimes when I'm going through things, I'm like I can't just like be quiet and think. I
Mhm.
for some reason I'm incapable of that. I have to speak. I have to say something. I could get lost in the woods, but somehow I'm gonna find the highway and get on my car and go home. You know, and it's like that's your way. And then when she said that, I'm like, yo, what's up, homie? You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Some people think out loud, right? And again, it's a way of like understanding or processing your experience, right?
Yeah.
Being able to express it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there moments in your therapy session that was things like that happen and you look in their eyes and you know like, yo, we got something here.
I live for those moments, to be honest. The work I do is difficult, right? It's certainly not for the weak. Like we are front facing people who have experienced the most horrible experiences, the deepest, darkest traumas, right? But it's not limited to that. There's a lot of opportunities for celebration. And it's such a great privilege for me to have access to those as well. Like not only folks' vulnerabilities, but also their growth,
Yeah.
their progress.
Yeah.
Right?
You're so lucky, by the way, to hear things like that from people. They open up, because every time a friend of mine, or acquaintance, whatever, tells me something that like it could be a good news or something dark. At the moment they say the things that they say, I always say thank you. I'm like, yo,
Mm,
thank you for that gift, man. You allowed me to help you. You allowed me to share that darkness, and hopefully I could help you out. If not, I'm here anyway.
yeah, yeah. I certainly don't take that for granted, right? Like I hear you expressing your gratitude towards your friend who has been able to open up to you. And also I am guessing that this friend is also very thankful because not a lot of people are actually know how to listen. So here's the thing, when you're a therapist, you'd realize that not a lot of people are good listeners.
Yeah, they're just waiting for you to shut up, and then they're gonna say something, whatever they want to say.
Right, right. I don't know if you've had the experience of like ako nga, like when you say
I
something
hate
difficult and
that.
they kind of try to top it off.
Or you're like, oh, yesterday I had a flat tire, man. That sucks. And like, oh, yesterday I ate this cookie and it was stale. I'm like, bro, this is not about you. I'm telling you something that I went through.
Mm-hmm.
Say something like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, like, oh, I feel bad for you or whatever. Then maybe add the cookie thing.
Yeah.
I call out people like that. I don't play that game.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Good for
I'll say
you.
like, yo, 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 yo. This story is not about you. Stop making it about you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad that
Mm-hmm.
you went through that, but let me say the things that I'm saying. Add something to it or suggest something to it. Other than that, get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you for doing that because sometimes people may just not be aware, right? So it's not a competition, right? We can both have difficult experiences here. I'm not trying to be better than you, right? And also, yeah, and sometimes, I'll give you an example. When folks are crying, when a child is crying, right, we're very quick to hush, stop crying. You're okay, right? Because it's difficult to sit with some emotions. It's difficult to sit with one's suffering. It's almost like you want to solve it right away, you want to fix it right away. But the truth is, sometimes it's either not fixable or you can't fix it right away. It just is.
Yeah, I love that you
Right.
said that. That the kid crying. So yesterday I coached my kid basketball team, and we lost. It was a bad loss, and he's a very
Mhm.
competitive kid. So he was crying the whole time, right? My mom, my dad, and my sister was there. Lolo and Lola. They gotta be Lola and Lola. So my mom was like consoling him, which is whatever, it's fine. And then she went, my mom, who's gonna listen to this? She's gonna kill me, whatever. She's,
Hi, mom.
yeah, she's like, oh, go to him and console him. I'm like, no, you gotta let him be. You gotta let him process that emotion, learn about that emotion, and then when he's ready, then we'll talk.
Hmm.
And that's how
Hmm.
my approach. Like the whole time we're in the car, he was. devastated. And you don't think my heart's breaking? Like,
Mm.
my heart is breaking the whole time. His head is slumped. He put a towel on his head the whole time we're on the ride, and I just let him. Like, I don't talk to him. I just, And then before bedtime, that's when he was start feeling good, and he's like, "That was a bad game, Dad." And I'm like, "Eh." I'm like, "Yeah, what are you
Mm.
gonna do? We'll get them next time, huh?" And like then we start talking. I'm
Yeah.
like, you did your best. You were really good. I told you something before the game, and you actually followed it. I mean, we're not gonna make shots all the time, dude. That's life. We lose, we lose. It's complicated.
Yeah.
That's like going back to your point is that we're so afraid to feel emotions. It's okay to be sad, dude.
Yeah.
How would you tell someone that is sad that thinking they're depressed?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I also just wanted to add, in fact, I'd be concerned if you're not getting sad,
You're a
right?
psychopath.
I'd be concerned if you've never cried, right? Um, it's difficult. Okay, a lot of things can happen depending on what kind of relationship a person has with sadness. I'd even add anger to the mix, right? It's not exactly just one conversation, right? And perhaps like I'm speaking about this with my therapist hat on, right? It's ongoing work. Like what would it be like to have what would it be like to be okay with sadness, right? And I understand and I can appreciate that it's not easy, like especially for folks who are not used to it. Right? You just you want sadness to go away, right? There's a lot of room for growth in terms of just being able to recognize that sadness, just like any other emotions, come and go. You're also not happy 100% of the time.
Yeah, I hate those people that like pretend they're happy all the time. Like, I hate them. I hate them. Like, there is no way you're happy all the time, dude. Okay, you're happy
No.
most of the time, but not all the time.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Also, adding on the sadness, that's one thing I learned with myself that. But well, I learned before a few years ago. Like, it's okay to be sad. Just fight through the sadness. In the end, there's gonna be light, and it's okay to be
Yeah.
sad. And it's an emotion. It just comes and go. But I think the most important I learned was being sad doesn't make you depressed. Those
Uh-huh.
are two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me be nerdy a little bit here. Like even the word itself, emotion, like there's motion in there. Like the emotions move through you if you let them, right? And by nature, they're just impermanent. Like they're tentative. They're gonna come to you and they're gonna move away from you. That's just how they're designed,
Yeah,
right?
that's how I felt last night. I felt rotten because I felt I was blaming myself for the loss. I was
Mhm.
blaming myself because I let down the kids and whatnot. And the whole time I was going through this darkness, I'm like, "Hey, this is gonna pass. This is gonna pass. Tomorrow I'm gonna be okay." And then another side was like, "Oh, let's go to sleep so it'll pass by quick." I'm like, "No, dude, we're gonna sit down in this darkness for a bit. It sucks, but we're gonna be okay."
Yeah, yeah. I wanna like even bring in what kind of conversation are you having with your sadness, right? It could be, I see you. You know, I'm sad, and it makes a lot of sense that I'm sad. Maybe I've put in a lot of work in this basketball game. I really thought we were gonna win, but we didn't, and that makes me sad, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's 100% okay. It took, that's one thing, like coaching, I'm so grateful for was it really helped
Mhm.
me to be a better person, a better dad, just a better human being. It taught me so much. And like losing, growing up, when I play, I cry all the time when I lose because I want to win. And
Mm.
I used to be teased as, "Oh, you're a sore loser." So growing up, I thought I was a sore loser. But in my head, like, I'm not a sore loser. I just hate losing. Then fast
Yeah.
forward, I had kids, and this told my kids they're competitive. They don't like losing. Are they sore losers? No, they just hate losing. And with
Yeah.
Filipino family, they're like, "Oh, you're a sore loser. Why are you crying? Why are you getting mad? Blah blah blah." I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!" So I had to correct my family. I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! No, 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 no. He's not a sore loser, because he's not mad at the person that beat him. He's mad at himself. He's mad that he lost, but he's not a sore loser. Those are two different things. Sore loser and like I don't know, like a person that hates losing. Those are two different things."
Yeah, yeah. And I think like even the concept of using that, like you're a sore loser, comes from this belief that when you lose, you should be able to pick yourself up right away, right? But here's the thing, no one loves to lose. I mean, I'm not going to play a competitive game aiming to lose. Like, no one does that, right? Of course, we all want to do good, we all want to win, right? And yet, when you lose, it's fair to be sad, it's fair to be upset, right? But I think when someone says, hey, you're a sore loser, but why would you say that? Is there an expectation that you want me to be celebrating my loss? You want me to quickly, right, pick myself up? Like, I need time, right? And as much as I say that emotions are impermanent, they move, it varies for people. Sometimes it's 5 seconds, sometimes it's 5 hours. And we can't be putting a deadline to, okay, you'll be sad, but you can only be sad for a minute, right? That's not going to work.
Yeah, 100%. Do you find it hard to teach specifically Filipino families and Filipino individuals about mental health?
Not all, I would say. Yeah, yeah, there's a little bit of challenge. I think like my approach is really meeting them where they're at, right? You have to be able to, okay, like assess what needs work, like where it would be great if they can understand this piece that would be so helpful to them or their family, right? But I'm also checking on what do they already know, right? What are they good at? I want to highlight that. Like, hey, I can see that you are taking care of yourself. It looks like you're so committed to going to the gym every day. You know, that's good for you. I want to be able to treat my clients in a way where they really feel that I respect them, right? That I'm not the expert in the room, that I'm not better knowing just because I'm a therapist, right? Because this is your life. Like you're the expert in your life. Like you know what's going to be best for you. I'm here to help draw that from within you, but ultimately that's going to come from you.
Yeah. It's like the Matrix, like you can show the door. You're the one who's going through that, dude. Like
Exactly.
you gotta put in work, because I'm not in your
Yeah,
brain.
yeah,
I'm not in your mind.
yeah. Yeah, and it's also fair to say that some clients see me expecting some sort of advice or like you just tell me what to do. Hey Elda, I have anxiety, you tell me what to do. You know what? You don't need me for that. You go to Google, you type like how to deal with anxiety. You don't need to pay me to tell you what you're supposed to do. That's not what therapy is, right? Therapy is relational. It's a process. It's a process of trial and error. It's drawing your wisdom from within you. It's how do you sit with this uncomfortable emotions, right?
Yeah. Do you believe that most of your clients knows what they need to do? They're just afraid to do it, and then they just hopefully needs you to, like you said, like draw that from them.
I 100% believe that, right? They know it. They may not know that they know it. Maybe it's hidden somewhere. Maybe it's not easily accessible because if it were, they wouldn't go to therapy. Maybe there's something blocking that inner wisdom, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I tell people to, like, the answer,
Yeah.
dude. Like, you know the answer, because when you tell me the things, you gave two options. One of the option
Uh-huh.
is the answer. You just don't want to
Uh-huh.
choose that one because it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe there are fears there. Maybe it's been buried by so much trauma. Like something's getting in the way, but for sure, it's always within them, right?
When your emotional and spiritual cup is empty, how do you refill it?
Oof, this this thing needs to be in place if you want a sustainable career in mental health, for sure. So for me, how do I feel it? I I have a very good I'm just naturally introspective, right? I know what feels good to me. I know what gives me comfort, what food I like, what shows I like, the relationships in my life that are very important, the people that I go to. Mm. So I am clear with what's worth spending my energy on and what's not. And I'm very protective of that, right? I don't pretend. I don't force myself to fit in spaces that I don't belong. It's going to cost me. Right? So I'm very choosy in that way because I'm very protective of my mental health, right?
100%. I also agree. I want to ask you, because you're the best person to ask this. Filipinos are natural born bullies. I mean, we love making fun of each other. I mean, our is that the term sana all, right? Like it's a
Mhm.
perfect Filipino culture terminology. Sana all, for the people who doesn't know, sana all is like something good happened to someone, and then you say sana all. It means like, oh, I hope it happens to everyone.
Yeah, I wish I'm like that
Yeah,
too.
is that a
Yeah.
is that a negative thing or is it a positive thing?
I think depends on how you look at it. On one hand, I can see it being a form of celebration, right? It's just we don't know how to like express that in a better way, right? Like I recognize your success, sana all, right? Um, but then on the other, it can be a form of it's like you're dissing my success, right? Like yeah, like so then I mean, if let's just say I'm successful and it's because I worked hard on it and I deserve it, is sana all you saying you're minimizing the hard work that came for me to be able to get this, right? I, I don't know, I see both sides.
Yeah, it's
Right?
it's a complicated word because I love that terminology.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah,
somebody wants to learn our culture, our humor, I'm gonna say you need to learn that word, and you need to understand that word because that is the quintessential word that shows our
yeah,
culture. I feel
yeah,
like.
yeah. I can see how it can be offensive, right? Right, for others, right? And then I can see how maybe I just what else can you say if not sana all? Like congratulations,
Ah,
great job. Well, it doesn't give a doesn't have that
no,
spice.
it doesn't have, and it's just like actually in our culture, if you say some congratulations, people will like, whoa, 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 there's something wrong here. It's a mess up thing, but it's complicated, but I also love it.
Yeah, yeah. And I appreciate that we're talking about like the it's a mix of the good and the bad,
Yeah.
right? Like it would be so weird for a friend to tell me I love you and I'm proud of you. Right? Like it's almost what's wrong with you?
Hey,
Are
what
you
do you
sick?
want? I don't have money. But I do
Exactly.
say I love you to my friends. I do. I make sure. It's one of
Mm,
my thing that,
hmm.
and some of my friends are very like macho guys that like, no, I love you, no emotion. I'm like, no, I love you, dude. Like, or sometimes I'll
Yeah.
find other ways. Like, let's say one of my friends, very close friend of mine, I'll just go, I just want to tell you that when you die, I will be extremely sad. And like, I'm not gonna die yet. I'm just saying, when you,
Just so you know.
I will be extremely sad. That just shows you how much I care
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like we're like here's the role of the context here, right? Like there's that, like, what's your relationship like? Are you verbally expressive or are you not? And again, like there's space for these nuances, right? It's not to say that there is one thing is better than the other, but it really just depends. So going back to sana all, right? Our people have every right to appreciate it or to get offended by it, depending on what their experience is like, and we have to be respectful of that.
Yeah,
Mm.
for sure. I love that term, sana all. The first time I heard that word, I'm like, it made me feel joy because I 100% I know what it means. It's they're happy for you. They're also dissing you, and it's 100% Filipino. Listen, Elda, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Before we close out, do you have any last remark or anything you'd like to share or whatever?
You know what I'm for? I'm always for inviting conversations around mental health, right? Let's talk about it. Let's not fear talking about mental health. It doesn't have to be all pretty and good, but let's make space for these conversations because it's the only way for us to feel not isolated and more connected. I'd argue not only with each other, but even within ourselves.
Beautiful.
That's where I'm wanting to leave things off. And it's a great pleasure having this conversation with you,
Oh my
Aaron.
God. Yes. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for allowing me to ask those silly questions.
I had a lot of
Thank you.
fun.
Have a good day.
You as well. Take care.
Bye. Thank you again, Elda, for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron Del Yosa for An Immigrant's Life. I'll see you guys later.